We have two young studs at the quarterback position as Michael Penix Jr. and the Atlanta Falcons are traveling to Minnesota to take on J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. This is your Week 2, 2025 prediction and preview video. Hit subscribe button if you're new. Also hit the like button. Let's start off with the away team, the Atlanta Falcons. They are coming off a brutal loss last week. Not only did you lose this game, but you lost to a division rival. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-20. Michael Penix Jr. played a very good football game. He was an MVP in this matchup. 27-42, 298 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown to 0 interceptions. He did everything to go out there and win that game last week. It came down to two people. Young Waku, the kicker who missed the potential game-time kick to send them into overtime. And he had a down year last year. And Coach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. The offensive plays have to be better in this matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. The one thing that we know about Brian Flores, his time with the Miami Dolphins many years ago when he was a head coach, and his short period here with the Minnesota Vikings so far, he loves to go against young quarterbacks because he was sending that blitz over and over again. And if you can't beat that blitz, you're going to be in trouble. Now, Michael Penix Jr., he's only started 4 games in his career, but he has been very solid against the blitz. But the play calling hasn't been there. It was a lot of pistol formation last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You do not want to run that same formation over and over again against a team like the Minnesota Vikings that has a veteran play caller in Brian Flores. You have to go out there with different looks. And I'm not saying go out there and run shotgun the entire time or run shotgun 80% of the time. That can also get you hurt in this league. But run different sets on the offensive end. You have a bunch of weapons on this offense. Michael Penix Jr., he has a lot of mobility behind the line of scrimmage. I know that we look at him, we think of him being this pocket passer that stands tall in the pocket, and he delivers the football on a dime. That's the first part of his game. But he's a very underrated athlete. He was running for his life last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when wide receivers could not get open due to bad play calling and to the simple fact that the Buccaneers played a very good defensive game. Give them credit. But MPJ also had a rushing touchdown at 21 rushing yards. Let him use his legs outside the pocket. I'm not saying go out there and use design runs, but run some play action bootlegs and use that in your offense. This is what was missing last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because you ran pistol the entire time. But John Robinson, in the rushing department, he was a non-factor. 12 carries, 24 rushing yards. But he did have a crazy play in the open field. 6 receptions, 100 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. One of those receptions went for a 50-yard touchdown. Get him involved in the pass game. And you have Tyler Algier, 10 carries, 24 rushing yards. The offensive line did not play their best in terms of run blocking. But they had some good moments last week if you were to just go out there and run different sets on the offensive end. You have so many weapons on this team. You have to utilize them in different ways and be creative if you are Coach Robinson. And you have to find a way to beat the blitz. That comes down to Michael Penix Jr. and easy reads with Coach Robinson. Go out there and use a lot of motion in this matchup. Keep the Minnesota Vikings honest. And I will say this, the Minnesota Vikings, they did not blitz Caleb Williams much in the first half last week. But towards the end of the game, they kept sending heat over and over again. So sliding protection and identifying certain people on the field is going to be a key here for MPJ at the quarterback position. But he's done a tremendous job of this in the past at the college level and even the last 3 games of last season and even last week. But they need the run game to be better in this matchup, and they need to trust their offensive linemen to go out there and make sure that they can get those rushing lanes open to take some of that load off of Michael Penix Jr. Kyle Pitts, 7 catches, 59 receiving yards. That's solid. He should be able to go out there and have a nice game against the Minnesota Vikings. He's one of those tight ends, very good in the open field, very athletic. But can he be more consistent in this matchup, especially in the red zone situations? And we saw him last year. Those last 3 games of Michael Penix Jr., he became a focal point of this offense. Drake London, he had 8 catches, 55 receiving yards last week. He averaged 7 yards a catch. And he did have to exit last week's game dealing with a shoulder injury, but he's on pace to play in this matchup. But he had 15 targets. That's too much. With Michael Penix Jr. having over 40 pass attempts, that's too much as well. You need a more balanced offense in this matchup and spread the football out to these weapons. No receiver on this team should have over 10 targets because of the talent that you have. So offensively, recognize the blitz, take care of Michael Penix Jr., and be more creative on the offensive end with your offensive coordinator and Zach Robinson. As far as the defense here with the Atlanta Falcons, they played a very good game, in my opinion. A.J. Terrell led the team in tackles. He did a very good job in one-on-one situations, and the same with Xavier Watts. I like what Coach Brick did last week against the Buccaneers. Unfortunately, Baker Mayfield goes out there. It's a Emeka Buka time. He had 2 receiving touchdowns. When you go against a young quarterback like J.J. McCarthy, for majority of last week's game against the Chicago Bears, he did not look good. He looked rusty. He looked like a rookie quarterback, even though this is his second year in the NFL, his first year fully starting. Put that heat on J.J. Stop the run game and pay very close attention to Justin Jefferson, and the same with Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is not the same player that he once was 4 or 5 years ago, but he can still give you a lot of problems. He's still one of the best route runners in the game. But put that heat on J.J. McCarthy and make him have to go out there and make those tough throws over and over again. You don't want him to get into a rhythm. And that is what happened last week against the Chicago Bears late in the fourth quarter. He had a lot of time inside the pocket, and he started delivering the football on the dime towards the middle of the field to Justin Jefferson, to the outside with Aaron Jones. And be on lookout for the running backs in this matchup. Kevin O'Connell will use these running backs as wide receivers in certain situations coming out of the backfield. Now that they have Jordan Mason. And this is a big offensive line. The Atlanta Falcons, on paper, their linebackers, they are a bit undersized. They don't have the biggest defensive front anymore. But they still have some players that can go out there and make a huge splash against the run, like Zach Harrison. The same with Rook Ororo, David Onyemata, Leonard Floyd, who's a solid pass rusher. He's been solid against the run in the past. You have Caden Ellis, who is one of the best tackling linebackers in the game. Divine Diablo, who can move from sideline to sideline with his speed. But be on lookout for how this defensive front may look against a big offensive line like the Minnesota Vikings. James Pierce Jr., he's questionable for this matchup. Hopefully he can play. He was limited in practice due to a growing injury. If he can play, that's excellent. That's a guy that could go out there and make a huge difference on the defensive end. It's the reason why you selected him in the first round. This is a fast defensive front for the Atlanta Falcons, so they should be able to go out there and meet the running back at the point of attack. Jordan Mason gave the Minnesota Vikings a lot of juice last week. And Aaron Jones, he's the bowling ball with this team. He also has some of the best jump cuts in the league. Be on lookout for that. If you clog up the middle of the field, he may take it to the outside. He may go for 10 to 15 yards. So limit those splash plays on the ground. And you have to take this into account. JJ is a very good athletic quarterback in open space. He had a crazy rushing touchdown towards the end of the game against Chicago last week. You have to be wary of his legs and his athleticism. And he has that arm. You still have Jesse Bates, who is one of the best safeties in football, playing alongside A.J. Terrell on the back end, Xavier Watts, Mike Hughes, and Billy Bowman at the nickel cornerback position. This is a solid team on paper with the Atlanta Falcons. It just comes down to coaching. But I trust Coach Brick right now. And Jalen Walker mixed in with Arnold Ebiketie, those are very good linemen that could come off the edge and put a lot of pressure on JJ. But the main 2 people that I'm looking at in this matchup for the Falcons, it's not even Michael Penix Jr., it's not anyone on the offensive end on the field. It's the offensive play caller in Zach Robinson and it's Younghoe Koo. If he has a bad game in this matchup, and I'm talking about the kicker here, they may move off of him. They just sign a kicker to the practice squad. And usually when teams do that, that's a bad sign for the starting kicker. More than likely, they're ready to move on. So Younghoe Koo has to make his field goals in tough situations, and he has to make the extra points. Had a down year last year. They need to see more consistency out of him this year. Now let's talk about J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. They are coming off an amazing win last week over the Chicago Bears. They won this matchup 27-24, and it wasn't your typical football game. For majority of this matchup, Minnesota was getting outplayed. JJ had the pick 6. The first 3 quarters, he did not look good. But in the fourth quarter, he showed up when it mattered the most. And he ended the game on a very high note. 13-20, 143 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, the 1 interception that was a pick 6. And he had the rushing touchdown as well. And this matchup is about going out there and starting hot. Getting the football to Justin Jefferson, getting the football to Adam Thielen, and the same with Jalen Naylor. The Minnesota Vikings, they are just like the Atlanta Falcons on the offensive end. They have a bunch of playmakers that could take the heat off their young quarterback. And I believe that JJ will start off better in this game than he did last week because of all those factors that I mentioned just a couple of seconds ago. They need to go out there and get him into a rhythm. You can still run the football with the backfield that you have with Aaron Jones and the same with Jordan Mason. But if you can get J.J. McCarthy on schedule and he can start off hot and he can be more accurate towards the middle of the field, like how he was late in the fourth quarter to Justin Jefferson, this could be an easy game for the Minnesota Vikings to walk away with because you are the home team. It's going to be tough because you are going against Coach Brick, who is a very good defensive coordinator, and Raheem Morris, who is a very good defensive mind dating back to his time with the Los Angeles Rams. And it's important to bring this up. Kevin O'Connell comes from that Sean McVay tree. So does Raheem Morris, former DC with the Rams. Kevin O'Connell, former offensive coordinator with the Rams. So they know each other very well. But this is the thing here with JJ. The athleticism was off the charts last week. Get him going in the open field. This is something that he did a good job of on the college level. Just getting outside the pocket and making those big time plays down the field. And you have so many weapons that you can get the football to. Justin Jefferson is one of the best wide receivers in the game. When he's not open, he's still open. I'm not saying go out there and force him the football over and over again. But if you see a one-on-one situation and the accuracy is there and JJ feels like he has the confidence, just let it rip. Justin Jefferson will come down with the football 9 times out of 10. And we've seen him play with quarterbacks like Sam Darnold and the same with Kirk Cousins. He's had those big time moments over and over again. And he was clutch late in the fourth quarter because he had the 4 catches, 44 receiving yards to 1 receiving touchdown. Aaron Jones had the 3 catches, 44 receiving yards to 1 receiving touchdown. That was a beautiful throw and a beautiful play call designed by Kevin O'Connell. And use these running backs in space. You don't have to just go out there and use your running backs as pure runners here. This is why making that trade to bring in Jordan Mason was awesome, because Aaron Jones, he's a sneaky wide receiver. You put him out there as a wide out, he can give you some good plays. I'm not saying that he's on the same level as a Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara, but you saw last week, you give him the right play call, you give him the right design, he can run up those seams and he can cause a lot of problems on those linebackers and on those safeties as well. And the play calling with Kevin O'Connell, he's been one of the best head coaches in the regular season for a very long time. He got the most out of Kirk Cousins. He got the most out of Sam Darnold last year. So you know that he's going to have a bunch of scheme. He's going to have a bunch of plays out there and a bunch of easy layups for JJ to hit in the open space. How do you attack the Atlanta Falcons defense? You saw what Baker Mayfield did last week. He trusts his wide receivers. He'll take those deep shots when they were there. He didn't force them over and over again. But if you can run the football enough, you can force them to crowd the line of scrimmage. You take that pressure off of JJ, you can take those deep shots down the field because now you have one-on-one situations with someone like TJ at the tight end position, and he's one of the best receiving tight ends in football. Missed majority of last season, was recovering from that ACL injury, but towards the end of the year, you saw why they made the trade to bring him in a few years ago from the Detroit Lions. I do believe that the Atlanta Falcons are going to have A.J. Terrell matched up on Justin Jefferson. They may not double team him. If they do double team Justin Jefferson, that means someone else is open in one-on-one situations. Just a bunch of mismatched opportunities here for the Minnesota Vikings. And do not sleep on Jalen Naylor, who did have the 1 catch that went for 28 receiving yards last week. Even though the offense stepped up big time in the fourth quarter, we have to give Brian Flores a lot of credit. The defense kept them in this matchup. When you go against a young quarterback like Michael Penix Jr., you should heat him up early and often. And this is what happened last week against Caleb Williams. He started out 10 for 10. The rest of the game 10 to 24 because of the defensive play calling with Brian Flores. He just gives you so many different twists, so many stunts up front, and so many different looks to where it just overwhelms quarterbacks. And we've seen him do this before against veteran quarterbacks like Jared Goff. The same against a quarterback like Jordan Love. You want to put intense pressure on Michael Penix Jr. and make them one-dimensional. You have to be careful here because Bijan Robinson, he can go out there in space. He can make a lot of crazy plays. Like I mentioned, the 1 catch last week went for 50 receiving yards and went for a touchdown. So you have to take that into account. This is an explosive Atlanta Falcons team. And you went against a quarterback last week that had a lot of overthrows. Michael Penix Jr., in my opinion, even though he played a very good game, he played good enough for them to win that matchup. He did have a couple of overthrows. So if you can get him off his spot, have him going off that back foot over and over again, that may work into your game plan if you are Brian Flores. And they have a bunch of good playmakers on the back end of this defense. And Byron Murphy Jr., who is their best cornerback on the back end. Byron Murphy Jr. is a very good football player. Now, Harrison Smith here at the free safety position, he's dealing with an illness right now. He's doubtful to play in this matchup. We'll see if he's able to play. But that's a huge blow to have on the back end of your defense, but you still have Metellus, who's a very good player at the strong safety position. There's a reason why you gave him a contract extension this offseason. Josh Metellus can go out there and give you a lot of good plays. You have Isaiah Rodgers. Andrew Van Ginkel, one of the most complete linebackers in the game. He can rush the passer. He had 2 pick sixes last year. He can be that Bijan Robinson type of stopper in open field. You have Ivan Pace Jr. Be on the lookout for Dallas Turner in this matchup as well. It's the reason why they selected him in the first round with JJ a year ago. And I expect for Dallas Turner to have a big game in this matchup against the Atlanta Falcons and for him to have a big year this year for the Minnesota Vikings in general. The Russian defense will most definitely be better in this matchup because they were phenomenal last week against the Chicago Bears. DeAndre Swift only averaged 3.1 yards a carry. You have Jonathan Allen. You have Javon Hargrave. This is why you brought in those big pieces up front to be more physical. And you have Jonathan Gennard, who is your best pass rusher. So this is a very good defense on paper. And how they played last week, they may be better this year than they were last year. And they were a pretty good defense last season underneath Brian Flores. So put that pressure on Michael Penix Jr., take away that run game and limit those big plays in front of you. And be on the lookout for someone like Kyle Pitts and the same with Drake London on the outside. Drake London is not known for his separation. Now, he can separate. We've seen the Minnesota Vikings go out there. They mix in some zone, they mix in some man, but they were a man-heavy team last year and last week as well. They did a lot of good situations against DJ Moore and the same with Roma Dunze. They had a couple big plays that they gave up, but they still won the matchup. Just hang in there, and eventually that blitz should hit home if you are Brian Flores. And back to the offense here for a second. This revamped offensive line, it took some time for them to get going. But late in the third quarter, you saw them start to move people up front. Stick things out with that run game and continue to work with this offensive line. This is why you brought in Ryan Kelly. This is why you brought in Will Fries. This is why you drafted Donovan Jackson in the first round. It's a completely revamped offensive line in the interior. And it's going to give JJ more time inside the pocket so he can step up into his throws and you can call some QB keepers up the middle of the field. You should be able to part those linebackers out the way. Get physical with the Atlanta Falcons and try to punch them in the mouth as much as possible. And you have the running backs to do so. And speaking of the rushing totals here for the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Mason, 15 carries, 68 rushing yards. Aaron Jones, 8 carries, 23 rushing yards. But Jordan Mason was able to come in. He has that speed. He has that juice in the backfield. Expect for him to split carries once again with Aaron Jones in this matchup. This should be a very good football game between two young quarterbacks that are up and coming in the NFL. But I am going to take the Minnesota Vikings to win this matchup. They are the home team, and I believe in their coaching just a little bit more right now than the Atlanta Falcons coaching. I'm worried about Coach Robinson on the offensive end. I'm worried about Younghoe Koo. You can still have your questions about J.J. McCarthy. Now, if he comes out slow, I believe that the defense will do enough to keep them in this matchup. Look at what happened last week with the Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix Jr. is constantly getting them down the field over and over again. But in the red zone, the play calls are very predictable and it was easy to catch on to. And they were not able to capitalize on those opportunities because of a missed kick by Younghoe Koo. This is going to be a close football game. But I have the Minnesota Vikings win this matchup 28-23. But let me know in the comment section below, who do you have winning this game? The Atlanta Falcons or the Minnesota Vikings? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.